with the rich heiress for 5 years. Just one day before our engagement, she lost her memory in a car accident. I took care of her meticulously, hoping she would remember our memories, but I overheard her conversation with her unforgettable first love. Of course, I pretended to have amnesia. I just didn't want to marry him, until I really gave up on her and disappeared from her world completely. She appeared at my doorstep in a wedding dress, crying and begging, "Hero, can you marry me again?" The moment Rena Lynn opened her eyes, I stood up in joy. "Rena, you're awake." The doctor said she might never wake up again, so I barely dared to sleep, afraid of missing any news. Finally seeing her open her eyes, I had a lump in my throat. I clumsily held her hand. "How do you feel? Does it still hurt anywhere?" "Who are you? I don't know you." I was cut off mid-sentence. Rena said coldly. Dropping this sentence, I was stunned, unable to believe my ears. Forcing a smile, my voice trembled slightly. "Rena, don't joke like that. I am your fiancé, Hero." Rena's beautiful eyes showed a hint of disbelief. She suddenly shook off my hand, her expression angry. "Don't lie to me. My fiancé is Ryu Meng." Hearing this, I was stunned. Ryu Meng. I dug out this name from my memory. He was Rena's former fiancé. The Lin and Meng families once had an engagement. They grew up together, perfectly matched in social status, just when everyone thought they would be together forever. Meng suddenly went bankrupt, and the Lin family unilaterally announced the annulment of the engagement. Their engagement was left unsettled. Facing Rena's cold eyes, my bewildered gaze finally fell on the ring on her middle finger. My eyes brightened. "No, Rena, look, we are already together." I pulled her hand. The ring shone brightly under the light. I stammered to explain, while Rena's expression grew more impatient. Smack! The ring was thrown to the ground by her. Rena looked at me coldly, speaking word by word. "I don't care who you are. Get out now. I only want Ryu Meng." The doctor said Rena lost her memory due to the trauma from the car accident. This was the 5th time she had kicked me out of the hospital room, and behind the door was her angry voice. "Get out." I said, "I don't want to see you." Her friends stood in the room, looking at each other in confusion. It's so strange. Rena remembers everyone but has forgotten me alone. She even treats me quite badly. The door creaked open, and Anna came out. "Hero, don't be mad. She has amnesia now. It's normal for her to be a bit temperamental. She just forgot about me." My eyes darkened, and I smiled at her. "I understand. As long as she takes care of herself." Anna looked at me, hesitant to speak. After a while, she said softly, "How about bringing Ryu Meng over?" "Hero, don't get me wrong. The doctor said it might help stabilize her emotions and help her recover sooner." Her voice was a bit stammering, as if she also felt that this suggestion was a bit rude. "After all, I am Rena's fiancé." I didn't say anything, turning to look at Rena through the window. She was wrapped in bandages, her eyes red. "I just want Ryu Meng. Bring him to me." The always proud heiress now sounded so sorrowful. After a moment, I heard my own hoarse voice say, "All right." I entered the hospital room once again. This time, Rena was exceptionally calm. She looked me up and down. She spoke softly. "Hero, why would I want to marry you?" "Because we were in love. Because you once loved me." I opened my mouth, my fingertips turning white from clenching them, but I couldn't say a word. At this moment, a man walked in. Seeing him, Rena's eyes lit up. "Ryu, you're here?" Ryu Meng arrived quickly. He shoved my shoulder aside and looked at Rena tenderly. "Rena, I heard you got hurt." Rena pouted, nodding pitifully. "It hurts so much, and I still get harassed by a bad man every day. It's obvious who the bad man refers to." I swallowed my bitterness and silently stepped aside. Ryu Meng suddenly walked up to me. He looked down at me. "Did you hear that? Rena doesn't want to see you. Be sensible and leave on your own." He said it so matter-of-factly. I took a deep breath. "Mr. Meng, you should know that I am her fiancé now." Before Ryu Meng could speak, Rena suddenly looked at me. Her expression was filled with disgust, and she smirked contemptuously. "Then let's cancel the engagement. I never acknowledged you as my fiancé." The mental strength I had been holding up finally collapsed. I stared at her blankly. For a moment, I even wondered if she had really lost her memory. My body trembled, and I spoke hoarsely. "Rena, please don't treat me like this." I couldn't stand seeing Rena's look of disgust every day, avoiding me like the plague. At least don't hate me so much." It was almost a humble plea, but Rena just tilted her head. Her red lips slightly parted. She clearly and maliciously said, "No, you make me sick just by looking at you." I was kicked out by the smug Ryu Meng. Listening to the two of them flirt inside the room, I leaned against the wall, clutching my chest in a daze. Inevitably, my heart began to ache painfully. I never thought Rena would say something about canceling the engagement. Even during our hardest times, she never did. Back then, she had a falling out with her family, and I was going through the toughest period of my life. The two of us squeezed into a small rented room, living in poverty. The heiress who had never had to work for money secretly took on a job without my knowledge, just to buy me a watch I had wanted for a long time on my birthday. The watch wasn't expensive, but it was quite a sum for us at the time. I didn't know how she found the job or how she saved up bit by bit. In the bone-chilling winter, I looked at her chapped, red hands, and cried with heartache, and she just smiled with her eyes curved, softly saying, "Because I really love you." But the Rena who loved me so much back then, today, with a cold face, told me to cancel the engagement and that I make her sick. Rena didn't tell me when she was discharged from the hospital. I saw her update on her social media. The ring Ryu specially bought. Everyone take a look. Is it pretty? The accompanying picture was of her hand, with the ring on her middle finger particularly striking. Putting down my phone, I felt a bit dazed. The image of Rena throwing away the ring just a few days ago seemed still fresh in my mind. I didn't understand why amnesia would cause such a drastic change in someone's attitude. Or maybe she never loved me to begin with. I shook my head quickly, not daring to think further. Rena just has amnesia. I can wait for her to remember everything little by little, whether it takes a year, 10 years, or a lifetime. I returned to the marital home, only to find Rena unexpectedly in the living room. Seeing me, Rena's delicate face showed anger. "Hero, I can't believe you would use such tactics. Have you no shame?" Suddenly being scolded out of the blue, I was stunned. I tried to calm her gently. "Rena, I don't know what you're talking about." Her eyes were filled with hostility, and she threw a pillow at me. "Stop pretending. You're the one who told my parents to break me up with Ryu and then trap me here. Hero, you're disgusting." Hearing this, I immediately understood. The Lin family didn't want Rena to have contact with Ryu Meng. I pressed my lips together, trying to explain. "It wasn't me. I didn't say that." Before I could finish, she cut me off. "Hero." Rena looked at me coldly, word by word. "If you do this, don't blame me for being rude." She dropped this line and slammed the door on her way out. Watching her back as she left, I silently clenched my fists. Rena came back reeking of alcohol. A tall man was supporting her. It was Ryu Meng. He held Rena intimately and placed her on the sofa. He glanced at the porridge I had left out to cool. Ryu Meng sneered and said, "Rena was right. You really are a good dog." He walked up to me, eyes filled with disdain. "Tonight, Rena and I will use the master bedroom. Would you mind giving us some space?" I suddenly stood up, my anger almost turning into action. "You dare try that and see what happens." I rushed forward, grabbed his collar, and punched him hard. He dared to take advantage of Rena's amnesia. Ryu Meng staggered back from my punch, groaning in pain. "Hero." This shout didn't come from Ryu Meng but from Rena on the sofa. I didn't know when she had woken up. Struggling to stand, she trembled with anger. Slap. A sudden slap landed on my face. My cheek instantly stung with pain, and I turned my head, unbelievingly covering my face. The grievance in my heart almost overflowed. "Rena." I looked at her beautiful face, hoping to see a hint of pity. Unfortunately, there was none. Rena gritted her teeth, her face filled with hatred. "How dare you hit Ryu? Who gave you the right? This slap is to repay him." My throat tightened, and I couldn't say a word. She carefully helped Ryu Meng up, leaving me with one last sentence. "Hero, I really don't want to see you. Can't you just die?" The two of them went upstairs. For some reason, I could clearly hear their intimate noises. I sat on the sofa, dazed and heartbroken. "Rena, you will regret this," I muttered to myself. I entered the study, struggling to hold back the tears. On the desk lay a wedding dress. Rena once said that when she married me, she wanted the most unique wedding dress in the world. So, 2 months ago, I began designing this wedding dress. I hired the best teacher, and every stitch was sewn by hand. My hands trembled as I touched the RL design on the dress, and tears finally blurred my vision. We were so close to getting married. The man she once protected so fiercely was me. The next morning, I went to the kitchen to make her some hangover soup. Rena often had headaches the day after drinking heavily, so I asked an old Chinese medicine doctor for herbs and brewed the best hangover soup for her. I waited for a long time, but Rena didn't come down. I went upstairs and found her standing in the study. She quietly watched the wedding dress, her long hair covering her expression. I was stunned. Did she remember something? Suppressing my excitement, I spoke gently. "Rena, what's wrong? Does your head hurt?" She raised her head, looking at me expressionlessly. "What is this?" I let out a breath, following her gaze. "This is the wedding dress I designed when we were about to get engaged. You said you wanted a unique wedding dress." As I spoke, I couldn't help but choke up. "Rena, please remember." Rena didn't say anything, and I thought she might be moved. Suddenly, she looked at me and said, "Are you done?" I was stunned. The next second, she picked up a utility knife and slashed at the wedding dress. Her movements were swift and filled with unmasked hatred. By the time I reacted, The wedding dress was already destroyed beyond recognition. Only then did Rena laugh heartily. Hero, the ring is gone. And now the wedding dress is gone too. She curled her lips, her smile malicious. So that damn engagement should be cancelled as well. Everything happened too suddenly. I closed my eyes, feeling inexplicably tired. Forcing a slight smile, I turned and left. Rena, you're tired too. Go back. Rena really hated me. I belatedly realized this. Outside the door, Ryu Meng was leaning against the wall. I stared at the scratch marks and kiss marks on his chest. They were glaringly red, proof of how intense they had been last night. He glanced at me with pity. How pathetic. Don't long for things that don't belong to you. He seemed to think of something amusing, took out his phone, and smirked. Since you're already so miserable, there's no harm in showing you. I took the phone with trembling hands. There were inappropriate photos and videos taken at some unknown time. The sight made my eyes instantly red with anger. Ryu Meng took back his phone and chuckled provocatively. If you want, I can send you a copy. As he passed me, he whispered in my ear, by the way, your wife was amazing last night. After saying that, he pushed me aside and entered the study, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded. The engagement party proceeded as planned. Mr. Lin approached me, pleading with me to marry Rena. If she were to break off another engagement, Rena's reputation would suffer. I was silent for a moment, then agreed. I didn't want Rena to be tainted with any bad reputation. To my surprise, Rena didn't react much to the engagement either. She accepted it very calmly. The engagement party was hastily arranged, and the wedding dress and ring were casually chosen. Standing at the wedding venue, I still felt a bit dazed. It felt like an orderly ceremony, not a real wedding. I wondered, was this decision truly the right one? Rena and I were not in the same room. The guests had all arrived, and I walked up to greet them with a smile. I should have been with Rena, but she hadn't come out yet. I thought she might not be ready. As time passed, it was time for the ceremony. Rena still hadn't appeared. Whispers began to spread among the crowd. Mr. and Mrs. Lin's expressions grew increasingly tense. I reassured them softly, glancing at the door from time to time. Rena would come. She had never lied to me. Rena couldn't possibly lie to me, until the makeup artist who was dressing her rushed in. Something's wrong. Miss Lin is missing. The lively venue fell into a dead silence. The makeup artist stammered. I was halfway through doing Miss Lin's makeup when she suddenly said she needed to go to the bathroom. She didn't come back for a long time. When I went to look for her, I found she was gone. I could feel everyone's sympathetic eyes on me. Bitterness filled my mouth, and I forced a smile. In fact, when Rena had been unwilling to see me earlier, I had a premonition. I just didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that Rena, who loved me so much, would do such a thing. I wanted to protect her reputation, but she didn't care about my dignity at all. I took a deep breath, bowed to the guests, then nodded to Mrs. Lin. Let's find Rena first. I found Rena in an alley. She was in Ryu Meng's arms, whispering intimately. I heard Rena laugh softly. Her voice was charming and gentle. She said, Ryu, we can finally be together. Ryu Meng whispered something in her ear. She suddenly buried her head in his neck, laughing foolishly. I didn't lose my memory. I just fooled that idiot hero. I just don't want to marry him. A buzzing filled my head. I stood at the corner, my body starting to tremble. I finally understood why Rena's behavior had been so strange. I finally understood why she had forgotten only me. It was all fake. Everything was fake. The countless excuses I had made for her. In the end, they became the most fatal blow to my heart. I laughed softly. Grievance, anger, pain, all the emotions that should have been in me turned into one thing. Come. I closed my eyes, my nails unconsciously digging into my palms. It was time to end this. Mr. and Mrs. Lin also saw them. With Mrs. Lin's scream, Rena finally noticed me. A trace of discomfort flashed in her beautiful eyes before she replaced it with a vicious look. You saw. Perfect. Saves me from having to tell you again. Hero, I don't want to marry you. I interrupted her before she could finish, looking at her calmly. Rena, let's cancel the engagement. Rena was stunned, her eyes widening slightly. She seemed surprised that I was the one to say it first. After a moment, she smirked sarcastically, pretending to be magnanimous. Trying to play that game too. Just don't come crawling back to me later. I won't. I smiled. I never will again. Mr. Lin sighed deeply, unable to say anything about continuing the engagement. With the engagement cancelled, I moved out of the marital home. The thought of the traces Rena and Ryu Meng had left there made me feel disgusted. On social media, Rena often posted photos of herself with Ryu Meng. It was like she was flaunting triumphantly. Rena had always been like this. I shook my head and began to tidy up my new home. While packing, I unexpectedly found a photo album. It was full of photos we took in our rented apartment. I squatted down, staring at the album in a daze. Suddenly, I remembered why I liked Rena in the first place. I grew up with my grandfather. After my grandfather passed away due to an accident, I was taken back to the Moo family by a group of people. They said I was the lost child of Mr. Moo, but I knew what that really meant. I was an illegitimate child, the most unwelcome existence. In this circle, where everything was about interests, I was a thorn in everyone's side. After the family children found out my identity, they began to bully me mercilessly. I saw Rena at a party. She was wearing a princess dress, surrounded by admirers. She was the high and mighty princess, and I was the stray dog begging for scraps. During the party, while the adults were socializing, a group of children dragged me to a corner, leaving me lying on the ground like a dead dog. They kicked me and stomped on my face with their shoes, laughing all the while. Sometimes I thought, it would be better to die like this. After all, the only person who cared about me was gone. I slowly closed my eyes until I heard a soft, childish voice. "What are you doing?" The people around me suddenly stopped. Rena stood before me, looking down at everyone. "I don't bully people, yet you dare to bully others in front of me. Are you challenging me?" Rena's family background was strong, and her words scared the children so much that they scattered like birds. I stared at her, also a bit afraid, until those beautiful fox-like eyes looked at me. She reached out her hand to me. "Get up. Boys don't cry." Her tone was fierce, but her palm was warm and comforting. It was the first time I felt kindness from someone else. In an instant, tears rolled down my cheeks. Over the years, Rena had probably forgotten, and I never thought that we would end up like this. A few days later, there was a banquet I couldn't avoid attending. Reluctantly, I found a female companion to accompany me. In the banquet hall, amidst the clinking of glasses, my companion held my arm intimately as we moved through the crowd. I wore a polite smile as I conversed with them. Smash! It was the sound of glass shattering on the floor. I paused and looked up. Rena was standing there, holding Ryu Meng's arm, staring at me in a daze. The glass had shattered at her feet. My companion gasped, and I looked away. Lowering my head to comfort her softly, a shadow fell over me. Rena was suddenly standing in front of me. Her face was pale, and her eyes were fixed on my companion's hand holding my arm. "Who is she?" I frowned, finding it somewhat inexplicable. "That doesn't seem to be Miss Lin's concern." I looked at her calmly. "Miss Lin," Rena repeated softly, her eyes confused. Sensing my companion's unease, I patted her shoulder to reassure her. I spoke to Rena indifferently. "Miss Lin, please step back. You're scaring my companion." Only then did she sneer and glance up and down at my companion, laughing coldly. "It seems your taste isn't that great now either." After saying this, she adjusted the hem of her designer dress, like a peacock showing off. I just looked at her coldly. "I'll say it again. Miss Lin, please step back." She froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Hero, how dare you talk to me like that?" My patience exhausted, I exhaled and spoke clearly. "Rena, I think you forgot how badly things ended between us. Don't appear in front of me. You better not make me hate you more." After throwing down these words, I took my companion's hand and walked away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Rena standing there in confusion, while Ryu Meng seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The banquet continued, but Rena was nowhere to be seen. But that was no longer my concern. That evening, I got home and received a phone call. "Hello." The background noise was a bit loud. Then, an arrogant female voice rang out. "Hey, hero, come pick me up." It was Rena. I frowned. "If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." "Hero, how dare you hang up on me? Don't you dare hang up." Her voice sounded drunk and clingy as she whined. "I'm drunk. My head hurts." I took a deep breath. "Rena, go find Ryu Meng if you're having a problem. Don't bother me." At that moment, a stranger's female voice grabbed the phone. "Sorry, dude. This lady here had too much to drink and is bothering you." Rena continued to shout on the other end. "No, it's Hero. It's Hero." After some chaos, something seemed to happen. The other end suddenly quieted down. I heard Rena ask softly, "Hero, do you still love me?" She must really be drunk. Hearing this, I almost laughed out loud. I spoke harshly. "How could I? Just seeing you makes me sick now." The other end fell silent, and I could only hear shallow breathing. I just felt annoyed, expressionless. I hung up the phone. I've heard from others that Rena hasn't contacted Ryu Meng for several days. I'm not surprised. Rena has always been like this, kicking people away when she's tired of them. Until I saw her photo on social media. She was in a room, smiling brightly. The caption was, "Reconciled." I didn't understand what that meant, but the room in the background looked very familiar. I frowned. It was the marital home I had listed with the real estate agent. Why did Rena buy it? Could it be to commemorate her relationship with Ryu Meng? Late that night, it was raining heavily. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. I got up and opened the door. Seeing who it was, I was a bit surprised. It was Rena. She was drenched from the rain, her small body trembling slightly. My eyes fell on her clothes, and I was stunned. I immediately recognized the wedding dress she was wearing. It was the one I had painstakingly sewn by hand, the same one she had slashed to pieces. Now, the dress was miraculously intact again. On closer inspection, some of the stitches were clumsy, like they were sewn by a novice practicing. Hero. Rena's voice was thick with a nasal tone, her makeup a smeared mess. The always exquisite heiress looked utterly disheveled. Hero, she called out again, meeting my expressionless face. Rena's eyes were filled with tears. I shouldn't have done those things before. Can you give me another chance? I love you so much. Hero, will you marry me again? I quietly looked at her. The Rena who had once smiled so brightly in our rented apartment overlapped with the one standing before me. Yet my heart felt nothing. Not even a trace of resentment remained. I realized then that I truly didn't love her anymore. I sighed, taking a towel from the bathroom and tossing it to her. Just as her eyes lit up a bit, I spoke slowly. You expect me to marry you when you want, and throw me aside when you don't. Rena, where in the world is it that easy? You should know by now. I don't love you anymore. Rena's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, trying to explain something, but I closed the door on her. Rena, we should have said goodbye a long time ago. Rena disappeared for a few days, but Ryu Meng contacted me. His voice was a bit hoarse. Hero, let's talk. At the coffee shop, I was a bit surprised when I saw Ryu Meng. He looked haggard, his handsome face showing signs of exhaustion. Gone was his previously arrogant demeanor. Seeing me, he gritted his teeth. What did you do to Rena to make her break up with me? I lowered my eyes and calmly spoke. You should ask Rena that, and tell her to stop bothering me. He trembled with anger, and when his gaze fell behind me, he was stunned. Rena. I turned around and saw Rena standing behind me, her eyes red. Seeing me look at her, Rena bit her lip. Her once bright voice was now dim. Hero, did he bully you? I looked at her coldly and shook my head. Rena stammered. If he bullies you, you can tell me. I interrupted her. No need. I'd prefer if both of you never appeared in front of me again. Rena trembled, her eyes filled with pain. I got up to leave, and behind me, her choking voice called out, does it mean that no matter what I do, you won't care anymore? I paused for a moment but walked away without looking back. It was a silent answer, because wrong is wrong. Late affection is cheaper than grass. Almost every day, I received long and short messages from Rena, expressing her regret and love. I tirelessly blocked all her accounts. After a period of silence, I heard news about Rena again. I didn't expect Rena to go this far. When I found out, she had already severed ties with her family. It wasn't just a tantrum or a quarrel. She had completely cut ties. She gave up her identity as a rich heiress and the life of luxury and wealth. I thought of the last message she sent me. If we could start over, would you forgive me? I didn't understand what she was trying to do. After leaving work, I found Rena standing at the company entrance. Seeing me, she stood up straighter, looking a bit nervous. She was no longer wearing those branded clothes, just a simple white dress. Rena had never looked twice at such clothes before. I gave her a brief glance and frowned. What do you want? She lowered her head and handed me a lunchbox. Have you eaten? I made this myself. I finally understood what she was trying to do. The heiress who never lifted a finger was now cooking for me. How ridiculous. Her face was full of an ingratiating look, her eyes shining with hope. I paused, took the lunchbox from her hand. The next second, I threw the bag and lunchbox into the trash can. I won't eat it. Don't come again. Instead of going home, I entered a restaurant. A friend of mine insisted on setting me up on a blind date after my engagement was broken off. I couldn't refuse, so I agreed. When I arrived, the woman was already there. Her name was Mika, and she was petite and cute, with round apricot eyes that curved like little crescents when she smiled. Hero, you must be Hero, right? Her voice was also very cute. I smiled and nodded. Her way of speaking was playful and interesting, and by the end of the dinner, I was in a much better mood. When we said goodbye, Mika cheerfully handed me a note. If I'm your dream girl, please light up the signal for me. I couldn't help but laugh, putting the note in my pocket. As I left the restaurant, I immediately saw Rena standing nearby. She had already seen Mika leaving earlier. Hearing footsteps, she looked up, her face still streaked with tears. I sighed and reminded her, it's late, you should go home. Rena ignored me and asked blankly, will you get engaged to her? I frowned, wanting to say not so soon, but after thinking for a moment, yes, if nothing unexpected happens. Rena opened her mouth in hesitation. Then, what about me? You can go find Ryu Meng, or apologize to your family. Her tears started flowing again, crying pitifully, but I only like you, I only want you. I stared at the disheveled Rena and suddenly laughed. It's disgusting to hear you say that. Let me tell you, even if I marry a dog, I would never marry you. Rena, as if all her hopes were shattered. Rena's eyes gradually dimmed. Not wanting to see her anymore, I immediately turned and left the place. After that, I never saw Rena again. The next time I heard about Rena was on the news. The broadcast's female voice was particularly gentle. The long-missing Miss Rena from the Lin family was found dead at home this morning. Suspected suicide. And I, holding my new bride, had already started a new life. Rena's side story. Hiro likes me. I've always known. From the way he looks at me. From his clumsy behavior. I've caught him stealing glances at me more than once. So obvious. So very obvious. Although I don't know why he likes me, but I don't dislike him. I even enjoy his deliberate attempts to please me. After all, even though his family background isn't good, he's good-looking enough. As a woman, being courted by such a high-quality man is quite satisfying. Many men have confessed to me, almost all of them dressed in suits, holding roses. Cliché, boring. Only Hiro, whose love letter was almost soaked with the sweat from his palms. I found it funny. Impulsively, I agreed to him. The day I agreed to Hiro, he cried and laughed, spinning me around several times. He said he would never let me regret choosing him. Of course, I've never regretted anything. Hiro treated me very well, better than anyone besides my parents. Oh, maybe even better than my parents. He often worked part-time jobs, saving every penny to buy me gifts. I told him I didn't need them, that I could buy a lot with my own money. Hiro just said that as my boyfriend, it was his duty. He said this and then cried, feeling he had wronged me. What a fool. I thought no one could be a more qualified boyfriend than him, even though I didn't like him. After graduating from college, he said he wanted to start a business, to earn a lot of money for me to spend. I thought he was an idiot, but I was a bit bored, so I played along with him. After all, I didn't like him, so I severed ties with my parents and squeezed into a tiny rented room with him. Hiro was amazing. Hiro was indeed worth it. During the hardest times, he spent all his earnings on me, never buying anything for himself. This fool. I couldn't stand his pitiful yet silent demeanor, so I lowered myself to get a job. The result of working was that my hands were red from the cold. My hands, which I had taken care of for so long, were now frozen and red. I was a bit angry, but seeing Hiro's teary, grateful expression, it didn't seem like a loss. Later, I met Ryu Meng. He cried his heart out, saying he couldn't live without me, that he truly loved me. Yes, Ryu Meng and I were meant to be together, but we were forced apart by our families. I loved Ryu Meng. From that day on, I kept seeing Ryu Meng secretly, until the day I went to see him. I got into a car accident. It was incredibly painful. When I opened my eyes again, I was met with Hiro's worried face. I no longer wanted to be with Hiro, but I didn't dare to say it. So, I came up with a good plan. Pretend to have amnesia. There's a term in medicine called selective amnesia. I pretended to remember everyone but him. Hiro looked very sad. I felt a bit guilty, but I had no choice. I wanted to be with Ryu Meng. I didn't understand why Ryu Meng didn't visit me often, but I saw Hiro every day. He made soup and cooked for me, trying to make me happy. He even stayed up all night during the first few days after I woke up. The more he did this, the guiltier I felt, so I deliberately scolded him, trying to push him away, but Hiro never left me. On the day of the engagement party, Ryu Meng suggested a plan: pretend to agree to the engagement, then run away at the last minute so Hiro would discover that I wasn't really amnesiac. That way, Hiro would definitely stop bothering me. For some reason, hearing this made me feel a bit sad, but I agreed. I didn't want to hurt him too deeply, so I had to do it this way. Sure enough, Hiro stopped bothering me. He personally said he wanted to cancel the engagement. When that moment finally came, I felt more panic than joy. I began to wonder if my decision was really the right one. I truly felt heartbroken when Hiro entered the venue with another woman. Even though I knew I shouldn't, I couldn't help but question him. He said he hated me. I watched his back as he walked away, feeling lost. My heart ached so much it felt like I was dying. Breaking up with Ryu Meng didn't hurt this much. I gradually realized I might actually love Hiro. Once I understood my feelings, I felt a sense of relief. I had liked Hiro for a long time. I just hadn't realized it. I thought, Hiro once loved me so much, he would forgive me, right? We could definitely go back to how things were. But no. Even though I stayed up several nights to mend the wedding dress he designed, even though I gave up my identity as an heiress, wanting to start over with him, from beginning to end, he never looked back at me. He said I was disgusting, that he'd rather marry a dog than marry me. I didn't understand why the Hiro who loved me so much had changed. It seemed like he didn't love me anymore. I couldn't believe it, until I saw him with another woman, a gentle smile on his face. That's when I realized, Hiro really didn't want me anymore. It was me, who lost him by my own hand. Willow and I had been childhood friends, waiting for the right moment to break through the invisible barrier between us. Just when we were about to confess our feelings, a girl appeared before us, claiming she was our future daughter. She said that in the future, I not only abused her but also cheated on Willow with another woman. In the end, I abandoned my wife and daughter to run away with my mistress. So, she was determined to prevent our relationship, insisting she would rather never exist than see such a future unfold. But what she didn't know was that I already knew the future. Watching her tirelessly try to set Willow up with other men, I couldn't help but smirk coldly. Chapter 1. After school, Willow and I were dragged into a small alley behind the school by a girl. She was beautiful but clearly not in her right mind, calling me and Willow Dad and Mom. I stared at her in silence for a while, then reached out to feel her forehead. "Miss, are you all right?" She impatiently swatted my hand away and continued looking at Willow with tearful eyes. "Mom, I'm telling the truth. I'm really your daughter from the future." Willow gave her a long, hard look, her tone exasperated. "If you're sick, go to the hospital." Saying this, she grabbed my hand, ready to leave, but the girl quickly grabbed the hem of Willow's school uniform, speaking at lightning speed. "Your phone password is George's birthday, isn't it? You have a journal where you write down all of George's favorite things, right? And you're planning to confess to him on his birthday, aren't you?" I froze, stealing a glance at Willow beside me. To my surprise, the always proud and aloof girl was blushing furiously. She shot me a quick look, bit her lip, and demanded, "How do you know that?" The girl smirked smugly. "Because I'm your most beloved daughter." Of course, I hadn't noticed earlier, but now, as I carefully examined the girl's delicate features, I realized her eyes did resemble Willow's. A thought struck me, and I asked, "What's your name?" The girl seemed reluctant to talk to me and answered dismissively, "Bliss." Hearing that name made my heart skip a beat. I remembered a conversation I had with Willow once. She had asked whether I preferred boys or girls. I said I liked girls. That day, the atmosphere between us had been particularly intimate, and I even joked that if we ever got married and had a daughter, I'd name her Bliss, to symbolize happiness and sweetness. I wanted us to be blissful together, even when our hair turned gray. Looking at Bliss's animated expression now, a mix of bitterness and disbelief churned in my chest. Almost instinctively, I reached out to touch her hair, but she dodged away. When her gaze swept over me, it carried unmistakable disdain. "Mom, can you please stop liking George?" Her tone was laced with genuine hatred. "You treat him so well, but he's never satisfied. In the future, he not only abuses me but also cheats on you with a younger woman. When you confronted them, they even hurt you." Chapter 2. Willow and I stood frozen. Bliss's heartfelt words seemed to hit their mark. Willow, almost unconsciously, got drawn into the emotion. She instinctively retorted, "That's impossible. George is a kind and gentle person." Bliss looked at her, exasperated. "I've traveled through time. I know exactly what kind of person he is. You're just too infatuated with him right now to see that you're missing out on your true love." Willow was about to argue further when a low voice came from the alleyway's entrance. "Willow." The moment Willow saw who it was, her pretty face turned icy cold, but Bliss's eyes lit up. "Uncle Ito." Following their gaze, I turned to see Makoto standing at the alley's entrance. He wore an oversized school uniform, his thick glasses hiding half his face. When he spoke, his words were thickly accented, his braces showing whenever he opened his mouth. At first glance, everyone thought he was completely unremarkable, but Makoto had done something extraordinary, something others would never dare. He once confessed to Willow publicly in front of the dormitory building. Willow had politely rejected him, but the incident became fodder for gossip among the students. They mocked him, calling him delusional and out of his league, a toad dreaming of eating swan meat. People thought Makoto would give up after that. Surprisingly, he didn't. From that day on, he showed up everywhere Willow did. Eventually, Willow got so annoyed by his persistence that she started treating him coldly, even sarcastically. Still, Makoto didn't give up. He continued chasing her. At that moment, Willow showed him no kindness either. She grabbed my hand, trying to leave, but as we passed Makoto, he grabbed her arm. I stepped forward, glaring at him directly. Makoto immediately let go, carefully pulling 2 movie tickets from his bag. He nervously said, "Willow, can I take you to a movie this weekend? Just to thank you for helping me last time." Makoto didn't come from a wealthy family. His thick accent often made him the target of ridicule at school, where students mocked him as a bumpkin. Before, it had only been verbal bullying. But after his confession to Willow, he offended the school bully, who had a secret crush on her. The bully even challenged me after class to a fight. Furious at the thought of Makoto, though stronger, he couldn't shake me off, and we ended up bonding through the fight. Oddly enough, the bully became a fan of Willow and me as a pair. Naturally, he began bullying Makoto. When Willow found out, she warned the bully, forcing him to back off for good. Now, Willow didn't take the movie tickets, instead frowning and asking, "You're barely scraping together your tuition. Why waste money on movie tickets?" Makoto chuckled awkwardly. looking down. I earned this from a part-time job over the past couple of days. Willow paused, her gaze faltering as she looked away. Then, in a cold tone, she said, I'm busy. This weekend is George's birthday. Chapter 3. As I held Willow's hand, leading her out of the alley, I glanced back. Bliss was stomping her feet in frustration, while Makoto stared at our clasped hands with unmasked jealousy and resentment. In his eyes, I saw a mixture of bitterness and hatred. It wasn't new. As Willow's childhood friend, I'd been with her for years. Our families were well matched, making me a constant reminder of what Makoto lacked. Makoto once confronted me about it, saying I was just lucky. He claimed that if he had my background, he'd be standing next to Willow instead. At the time, I was preoccupied with solving a math problem in my head, but I still gave him a polite smile and said, Makoto, instead of telling me this, why not go back and solve a few more problems? If you can't change your circumstances, why not work hard to change your future? Unfortunately, my well-meaning advice was taken as an insult. From then on, Makoto despised me even more. Bringing my thoughts back to the present, we had reached my apartment building. Before we parted, I asked Willow what she thought about Bliss's claims. She snorted. Does she think she can call me Mom just because she's cute? Then, glancing at me from the corner of her eye, her ears turning pink, she added, besides, our future daughter would never badmouth you. She'd be sweet and gentle, just like me. A warmth spread through my chest. I thought to myself, maybe I was overthinking it. Could time travel really exist? The name Bliss was probably just a coincidence. That night, perhaps shaken by the strange events, I had an even stranger dream. In the dream, I was sitting at a desk, holding my phone, about to send a message. I stared at the contact labeled Anna and typed, "Come with me." The reply came instantly, "Okay." The absurdity of it all hit me like a wave. I turned off the screen, and for a moment, in the faint reflection, I saw my own face, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like someone who had been through hell. Before I could make sense of my surroundings, the alarm clock went off. It was time to wake up for school. I sighed, shaking my head. Clearly, I was losing it. Chapter 4. This weekend, I invited my friends to celebrate my birthday. After dinner, we headed to a karaoke bar to continue the festivities. While thanking my classmates for their gifts, Bliss's words kept echoing in my mind. I couldn't help but wonder if it was true. Was Willow really planning to confess to me on my birthday? But Willow seemed distracted today, constantly glancing at her phone. When thunder and rain suddenly rolled in, she anxiously stepped outside to take a call. When she returned, she still seemed restless. My good mood from the birthday celebrations evaporated in an instant. I wanted to ask her, didn't she say Makoto's invitation didn't matter? Why was she acting like this now? Noticing the tension between us, my buddy David grinned and picked a duet for us, a sweet love song, teasing us to sing together. Willow snapped out of her daze, shyly turning to me. Would Princess Willow Misty do me the honor of singing with the evil dragon Gagrand? This was a game we used to play as kids. Willow would always play the kidnapped Princess Willow Misty, and I'd be the dragon Gagrand rescuing her. Every time I saved her, she'd give me a light kiss on the cheek. My mood lifted slightly, and I nodded. But just as we got halfway through the song, someone burst into the room. It was Bliss. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, and for some reason, seeing her like this made my heart ache a little. Ignoring everyone's surprised looks, Bliss quickly approached Willow and exclaimed, "Mom, you have to save Makoto. He was beaten badly by his dad's debt collectors and is in critical condition." Willow froze for a moment. Before Bliss could say anything else, she dashed out of the room. My mind went blank. I couldn't feel any emotion, just instinctively chased after her. Rain poured heavily outside. I struggled to keep up with Willow, shouting her name at the top of my lungs, but she never looked back. Getting into a car without hesitation, I ran after it for a few steps, but then my foot slipped, and something sharp cut my leg. Blood dripped into the cold rainwater, quickly washing away. Clenching my teeth, I stood up, cursing silently that Willow was crazy for not even bringing an umbrella. But then again, why didn't I bring one? I laughed bitterly. I guess I was just as crazy as she was. When I finally limped to the cinema, the reality hit me like a brick. I watched Willow throw herself into a perfectly unscathed Makoto's arms, sobbing as she lightly pounded his chest. The next second, Makoto hugged her tightly, draped his jacket over their heads, and they ran off together. Chapter 5. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared over my head. Startled, I turned to see Bliss standing next to me. Her face was hard to make out in the dim rain, but her tone was unmistakably mocking. "See, that's my mom's true love. What are you even to her?" I didn't respond to her jab. Instead, I asked, "Aren't you cold?" Bliss froze, staring at me for a moment before shoving the umbrella into my hand forcefully. "You're such an idiot," she snapped before running off into the pouring rain. I held onto the umbrella, standing there, unsure of what to do. The warmth left on the handle by Bliss was quickly fading, much like my mood. which was growing colder by the second. At that moment, an unfamiliar car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down to reveal David's face. "Get in, man," he urged, soaked to the bone. I hesitated, worried about dirtying the seats, but David pressed me reluctantly. I opened the door and climbed in. "Thanks, David," I murmured, finally snapping out of my daze. David rolled his eyes. "Come on, no need for thanks. And if you're thanking someone, thank my aunt. If she hadn't come to pick me up, I wouldn't have caught up to you." Turning to the middle-aged woman in the back seat, I quickly expressed my gratitude, only for David to burst into laughter. "You've got it wrong, George. She's our housekeeper." My aunt's in the front seat. Confused, I looked to the driver's seat and realized David was right. The woman driving wasn't a woman at all, she was a girl. From my angle, I could only see her sharp, delicate profile, but she was clearly younger than David. "Thank you," I said politely. She didn't seem pleased, her tone frosty. "It's nothing." David leaned over and whispered, "Don't take it personally, George. She's always like this, walking around with a face like everyone owes her money." Speechless, I didn't know how to respond. The girl in the driver's seat, however, spoke coolly. "David, if you don't want me telling my brother about your failed exam, shut your mouth." David stuck out his tongue at her but stopped talking. That's when he noticed my injured leg. "George, what happened to your leg? You're bleeding so much." I tried to downplay it, but David's aunt immediately instructed the driver to head to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor carefully cleaned my wound and prescribed some medicine, while David went to collect the medication. His aunt and I waited in the crowded lobby. There weren't any free seats, and my leg ached from standing too long, but I was too embarrassed to ask for help, so I stood there on one leg, gritting my teeth. Suddenly, a pair of hands gently supported my arm. Startled, I looked at her. She turned her head slightly away. Her cheeks tinged pink. Her tone was awkward but firm. "Don't push yourself when you're already in this state." Chapter 6. I awkwardly scratched my head, muttered a quiet, "Thank you," and let her warm, slightly damp hands steady me. After a moment of silence, she suddenly asked, "George, do you really not remember me?" Under the light, I could finally see her face clearly. Her features were delicate, as if crafted by an artist, every line soft yet precise. Her complexion was like the faint blush of dawn, a subtle warmth radiating from her. But when you looked closely, her expression held a frosty elegance, like sunlight on a snow-covered peak, beautiful but distant. Her eyes were veiled with a misty haze, as though a shimmering light danced just out of reach. I searched my memory carefully, but aside from knowing her through David, I couldn't recall any other connection between us, and David rarely mentioned his family. Tonight was the first time I'd learned he had such a young aunt. Puzzled, I looked at her. She lowered her gaze, seemingly disappointed. Then she said, "Qingqiao High School, third debater for the opposing team." The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I suddenly remembered last year's debate competition. Representing our school, I had gone to Qingqiao High School to compete against them. The host school, their third debater didn't speak often, but every word she said was sharp and to the point. Of course, I hadn't backed down, and our debate turned into a direct face-off. I even remembered her name, tentatively. I called out, "Anna." At last, she smiled, and her frosty demeanor melted into something warm, like snow thawing under the first rays of spring. But I couldn't smile back. The name Anna suddenly reminded me of that dream, the one where she seemed to be my future affair partner. When David dropped me off at home, he pulled me aside, his face full of concern. "George, what's going on with you and Willow?" I thought of Willow running off after Makoto earlier, her figure disappearing into the rain. A sharp pain pricked my chest, forcing a smile. I told him everything was fine, but deep down, I knew Makoto and Willow were no longer the people I used to know. Perhaps because of the rain, I came down with a high fever that night. In my haze, I had another strange dream. In a dark, windowless room, I stood frozen, teeth clenched, watching an older version of Willow walk away from me. Time passed, or maybe it didn't, I couldn't tell. Suddenly, a small hand reached out and gripped mine tightly. Though the hand was tiny, its warmth was overwhelming. She led me downstairs, where she gently pushed someone into my arms. That person's scent was faintly orange, a fragrance that inexplicably calmed me. When I woke up, 2 days had passed. My mom was by my bedside, worry etched all over her face. After I assured her I was fine, she finally relaxed and handed me a bowl of freshly cooked porridge. As I ate, I noticed a beautifully wrapped box on the nightstand. Mom explained, "I don't know what's wrong with you kids these days. After you collapsed that night, Willow came over completely soaked from the rain. When she found out you had a fever, she refused to leave your side all night. She left this box for you. It's your birthday present." I stayed silent. Chapter 7. The next day, as soon as I stepped out of my house, I saw Willow waiting at my door. She greeted me with a casual smile, waving as if nothing had happened. I ignored her, brushing past and heading downstairs without sparing her a glance. She followed me, tugging lightly at my sleeve when I wouldn't acknowledge her. "George, I'm sorry," she pleaded. "I shouldn't have left you alone yesterday. I know you're mad, please don't ignore me. It makes me feel awful." I pulled my sleeve away and quickened my pace. She hurried to catch up and grabbed my arm again. With a bitter laugh, I said, "I saw you throw yourself into his arms." Her face flushed deep red. She shook my arm as she stammered. "I was scared. That little girl said Makoto was badly hurt. And when I got there, I panicked. It was an instinctive reaction. I don't like him at all. I hate him." Actually, seeing my expression grow colder, she grabbed my hand, her voice trembling with urgency. "George, I'm serious. I've only ever liked you. The only person I want to marry is you." I froze. 4 years. Our mutual feelings had been an unspoken secret between us. I had even prepared a crystal swan necklace for her, a gift I planned to use when confessing my feelings on her birthday. But now, her confession, something I had longed for, came at a time and in a way I could never have imagined. The moment I had eagerly anticipated felt hollow and meaningless. With a sigh, I turned away and left. Willow followed silently, her backpack slung over her shoulder. For the first time, our walk to school was devoid of our usual banter. At the school gate, we ran into David. He didn't comment on the odd atmosphere between us, but when he got out of the car, I caught sight of Anna sitting inside. Her gaze was as frosty as ever, especially when it landed on Willow beside me. It was so cold it seemed to seep out of the car. Curiosity stirred within me. What had led the future me to a point where I would elope with Anna? Chapter 8. Time passed quickly. Willow and I never brought up that incident again, returning to our usual routine of going to school and heading home together. On the surface, nothing had changed, but deep down, I knew my feelings for Willow had faded. When had I realized it? Perhaps when Makoto stopped coming to school. I noticed how often Willow would glance toward the classroom door during breaks or look around the basketball court as we passed by, as if searching for someone. Sometimes, she even scribbled Makoto's name absent-mindedly on scraps of paper. When she realized what she'd done, she'd blush furiously, crumple the paper, and toss it into the trash. Habits are terrifying things. I had grown accustomed to Willow always being by my side, and now, Willow had grown accustomed to the persistent presence of Makoto. Watching her confusion and hesitation, I found it both absurd and laughable. I wanted to tell her, "If you care so much, why not go to him?" The turning point came one afternoon. I was reading under the gardenias by the school field when Willow stormed over, brimming with frustration. It was rare for her to lose her temper with me. The few times she had, it had always been playful, a way to get me to spend less time gaming with David and more with her. But this time was different. She threw Makoto's journal at my feet and demanded, "George, why did you say those things to him?" Her eyes brimmed with disappointment. "I already told you, I don't like him. Makoto has been keeping his distance. So why did you go behind my back and humiliate him?" I stayed silent, watching her outburst. Then I picked up the journal. As I flipped through its pages, I began to laugh. Makoto had written that I insulted him behind his back, calling him shameless for chasing Willow, and even incited others to bully him. He recounted the day we had met in private when I told him to focus on his studies. He wrote, "Words spoken lightly by someone standing on high only deepen the self-loathing of those already in the dark. Perhaps I was never meant to exist in this world." I tossed the journal back to Willow, sneering, "Willow, you don't seriously believe this melodramatic nonsense, do you? He's just putting on a pathetic show, wallowing in self-pity like a clown. It's laughable." Willow's face flushed with anger. "George, whether I believe it or not doesn't matter. Makoto has depression. Who would joke about something like that? And yet you still speak about him like this. I really misjudged you." I shook my head. "I'll say it again, if you believe this garbage, you're just as ridiculous as he is." Her eyes filled with disbelief, her lips trembling as she raised her hand to slap me, but I caught her wrist and returned the slap instead. She clutched her cheek, staring at me in shock. I looked at her coldly. "You two really are a perfect match, two fools, meant for each other." Tears streamed down her face as she grabbed my arm. "George, this is a matter of life and death. Makoto might do something irreversible. Please, come with me to apologize. If something happens to him, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." One by one, I pried her fingers off my arm, speaking each word slowly and deliberately. "Willow, I didn't do any of those things. If you want me to apologize to him, that's never going to happen, not in this life, not in the next. And even if your pleas make me want to die, I won't feel guilty." Her tear-streaked face looked at me, full of disbelief. I turned and walked away without looking back. I sighed, thinking to myself, how did we ever end up like this? Chapter 9. Willow began visiting Makoto's house every day, claiming she was taking care of him and apologizing on my behalf. When I heard about it, I almost vomited from disgust. Willow, I knew her too well. She was just using me as an excuse to see Makoto openly. Her family lived right above mine, so occasionally, I'd run into her on the stairs. Every time, she'd look at me as if wanting to say something but stopping herself. I knew what that meant. She wanted to reconcile, but I found it ridiculous. She couldn't let go of Makoto. Yet she couldn't bear to break things off with me either. Pure madness. That day, I was at home solving practice problems when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. When I finally checked, I saw the messages were photos of Willow and Makoto. In the pictures, Willow was smiling gently at Makoto, her eyes filled with feelings she probably hadn't even realized. Makoto, on the other hand, seemed fully aware that I'd see the photos. He was smirking provocatively at the camera from an angle Willow couldn't see. So this was the guy who was supposedly depressed. My fingers tightened around the phone as I waited for more messages from the sender. Luckily, they didn't keep me waiting long. Dad, say goodbye to your 17-year-old heart. Next, I'll tell Willow a truth that will make her leave you for good. It was Bliss. I didn't take it too seriously. I was more curious, what kind of man would I become in the future that Bliss would go to such lengths, even risking her own existence, to stop me and Willow from being together. But her efforts weren't wasted. Things were indeed heading toward the outcome she wanted. Still, the thought of Bliss disappearing made my chest ache. Could this strange bond really be because of blood ties? Bliss worked quickly. The very next day after school, Willow dragged me into an empty classroom. Bliss and Makoto were already there. Willow didn't waste any time. With red-rimmed eyes, she asked me, George, when we were kids, during that summer in the countryside, I fell into a deep pit. Who was it that saved me? Her question caught me off guard. It took a moment to recall what she was talking about. Back then, Willow had just started middle school. She'd been in an accident on her way to school and couldn't walk for months. During that time, she became temperamental, throwing and breaking things whenever something displeased her. Everyone, including her parents, avoided her. But I was an idiot. I thought she was just going through a tough time and needed someone to stay by her side. I believed that once she recovered, she'd return to being the sweet, gentle girl I knew. So I endured her tantrums and started accompanying her to her physical therapy sessions. Sometimes, I'd tell her jokes to make her laugh. I also helped her keep up with schoolwork, taking notes in duplicate every day so she wouldn't fall behind. But none of it seemed to cheer her up. Then summer came, and we went to her grandmother's house in the countryside. One evening, she insisted on going out alone in her wheelchair. When she didn't come back by dusk, I panicked and went looking for her. I found her lying beside a deep pit. When I called her name, she finally woke up. Seeing it was me, she burst into tears and threw herself into my arms, saying, I'll listen to you. I'll try to live well. Chapter 10. Now, Willow was looking at me with pain in her eyes, waiting for an answer. I replied, I don't know. When I found you, you were lying beside the pit. Makoto scoffed. You're lying. You tricked Willow. If it weren't for you, she and I wouldn't have missed out on so many years. I thought she remembered me all along. I looked at them coldly and said, I'll say it again. I don't know who saved her. Willow didn't say anything when she woke up. So how would I know? And I never claimed to be her savior. If she assumed that on her own, what does it have to do with me? I, George, don't need to steal credit from anyone. Enough. Willow couldn't take it anymore. She looked at me with utter disappointment. George, all these years, I was in love with the wrong person. I stayed silent for a long time before finally laughing bitterly. Willow, I'm curious. If it had been a dog that saved you that day, would you have fallen for it? Your love is so cheap that it wasn't worthy of me. Bliss had been right. It was time to say goodbye to my 17-year-old heart. In the end, Makoto led a sobbing Willow out of the classroom. I slumped against the wall, my mind a chaotic mess. A soft sniffle caught my attention. I turned around to see Bliss in the corner, blood dripping from her nose. Panicked, I reached for my phone to call for help, but she stopped me. Helpless, I took her to the restroom to clean up the mess as best I could. After we left the school, I saw her standing there in a daze. A strange unease stirred in me, and before I could think it through, I walked back to her. Want to stay at my place tonight? I asked directly, and she hesitated before nodding. When we got home, my mom had already prepared dinner and was sitting on the couch with my dad, waiting for me. I told them Bliss was a classmate who needed a place to stay for the night. They didn't mind at all and even took an instant liking to her, holding her hand as they chatted. For once, I saw Bliss drop her usual guarded demeanor, sitting quietly and behaving herself. Then my mom exclaimed, now that I look closely, Bliss's nose and mouth resemble George's. Even that little mole on her nose bridge, George used to have one there too. I froze, instinctively glancing at Bliss. She was already staring at me with a complicated expression. I had always noticed how much Bliss resembled Willow, but now I saw she had some of my features as well. It was a feeling I couldn't describe. Aside from my parents, there was someone else in the world who shared my blood. Fearing my parents might catch on, I hurriedly sent Bliss to the room I had prepared for her after dinner. That night, with Bliss in the house, I had an unusually long dream. Chapter 11. In my dream, I married Willow. She was as gentle and lovely as ever. Just like when we were kids, I treated her like a fragile treasure, holding her with the utmost care. We shared countless sweet moments, just as I had once imagined, a love that would remain sweet forever. But everything changed with our first fight after marriage. The argument began because she insisted I quit my job to care for her during her pregnancy. She was dissatisfied with every nanny I hired, replacing them 7 or 8 times in just a month. She wasn't happy unless I was with her every second of the day. At one point, she even called my boss and berated him over the phone. That fight escalated quickly, involving both our families. I chalked it up to hormonal mood swings during pregnancy and apologized first, promising to take leave during her later months. She tearfully admitted she just felt emotionally unbalanced. It wasn't fair that men didn't have to endure what women did to have children. She didn't truly blame me. Feeling guilty, I hugged her tightly. But after Bliss was born, Willow seemed to change entirely. The woman who once didn't care much about punctuality now left the house early every morning, skipping the breakfasts I prepared. She often came home late, smelling faintly of smoke. Suspicion gnawed at me. I hired someone to investigate, and the truth came crashing down one day. Armed with evidence, I stormed into her office and caught her laughing and chatting with Makoto, her hand resting on his arm. Makoto was unrecognizable from his high school self. Gone were the thick glasses and timid demeanor. He now wore a tailored suit and styled his hair with precision, exuding confidence and charm. When they saw me, they both flinched and immediately moved apart. Makoto greeted me awkwardly, but I ignored him, focusing on Willow instead. She panicked, quickly telling Makoto to leave before grabbing my hand to explain. She claimed it was just a joke. Tired of her excuses, I interrupted her, slamming the evidence I'd gathered onto her desk. At first, she cried and begged for forgiveness, confessing everything. She pleaded for another chance, but I was unmoved. Disappointment overwhelmed me, and I firmly demanded a divorce. That's when she snapped. If you had quit your job to be with me, if you hadn't ignored me, do you think this would have happened? She screamed, furious. I retorted that she was unfit to be a wife or mother, that even her choice of a fair partner was pathetic. Her response was laughter, bitter and mocking. She unleashed a tirade, comparing me to Makoto. She said Makoto was resilient, composed, and attentive, while I was spoiled and mediocre, relying on my family's connections for success. She claimed that if we had started from the same place, I would be a failure. At the time, my mother was gravely ill, her life hanging by a thread. The weight of Willow's words pushed me closer to the edge of emotional collapse. That was when Anna entered my life. She was my mother's attending physician. "You're George," she said, "and you don't need to compare yourself to anyone else." That single sentence pulled me back from the brink. At the end of the dream, Anna reached out her hand to me. "I've always been here," she said. "You only need to turn around to see me." The dream was so vivid, so real, that it left me believing it might truly be a glimpse of my tragic future. When I woke up, my face was damp with tears. Looking up, I saw Bliss sitting at the table, her chin resting in her hand as she stared at a photograph. The picture showed me with my parents, all of us smiling brightly. "Bliss, why did you lie to me?" I asked suddenly, startled. She turned to look at me, her eyes wide. I gave her a bitter smile. "It was Willow who cheated, wasn't it?" Bliss shot to her feet. "How do you know that?" I didn't answer her. Instead, I locked eyes with her panicked gaze and said slowly, "Why did you come back? Do you hate me so much that you're willing to erase yourself just to push Willow and Makoto together?" Bliss lowered her head, her expression unreadable, but her voice trembled as she replied, "Yes, I hate you, Dad." With that, she ran out of the room. My hands clenched into fists, the pain biting into my palms. I couldn't understand why she would do this. Chapter 12. Willow and Makoto ended up together. I heard the news while attending David's birthday party at the Yu family estate, unable to endure the pitying glances from everyone in the lively hall. I excused myself and stepped out. After all, who would have thought that Makoto, once dismissed by everyone, would actually win over Willow, the school's star, and that too while she already had me, her childhood friend. Before I knew it, I found myself in the Yu family small garden, where I saw Anna sitting on a swing, reading. A gentle breeze brushed her dark bangs aside, revealing her ever-calm eyes. On her lap was a box of candy, more than half of it already gone. I couldn't help but smile. This elegant young lady had an unexpectedly quirky side. Hearing the sound, Anna looked up. When she noticed me staring at her candy with amusement, her ears turned red, but she maintained her composure. "Want some?" I nodded, took the candy she offered, and sat on the swing next to her. Suddenly, I thought of the dream I had. I asked, if I were just an ordinary person, with no shine or privilege, would anyone still like me? It was a strange question, but Anna answered seriously. "Of course," she said. My heart raced. "Why?" I asked. Anna smiled, a radiant smile, like starlight in the dark night. "I'll never forget the first time I saw George. she said. Your eyes were confident and composed during that debate. Even when your team was at a disadvantage, you stood firm, presenting your arguments with conviction. Though you narrowly lost, you won everyone's admiration. I believe that a man like you could never be truly ordinary. Even if you lose your way temporarily, you'll eventually find your light again. Anna's gaze met mine, her tone soft yet resolute. But honestly, no matter how many people love you, it won't matter if you don't love yourself first. Never doubt yourself because of someone else's words. Her words warmed my heart and cleared my mind. Looking up at the sky, I murmured, "Thank you, Anna." Later, I treated David to a full day at the arcade, even renting out the entire place so we could play freely. By the time we finished, David had to rush to a private birthday dinner his parents had arranged for him, so I let my driver take him there first. Before leaving, he told me to wait, his aunt would come pick me up. I didn't want to trouble her, but to my surprise, Anna arrived within 2 minutes. It was as if she had been nearby all along. Without waiting for me to say anything, she grabbed the plush Jigglypuff toy I'd won at the arcade and hugged it, nuzzling it playfully. "Consider it a gift," I said politely. She scoffed lightly. "I'm not taking it for free." Pulling a hand-knit khaki scarf from her bag, she suddenly wrapped it around my neck. "Let's go," she said. "I don't have anything else to do anyway." Chapter 13. When we reached my building, I saw Willow and Makoto standing nearby. They were leaning close, chatting intimately. Just as their lips were about to touch, Willow noticed me. Startled, she pushed Makoto away. Looking flustered, Makoto's expression darkened, but he quickly put his arm around Willow's shoulder, giving me a challenging look. "Fancy seeing you here, George," he said, his gaze shifting to Anna. He paused, his expression turning complicated. "Already found someone new? Good. Saves you from pining over someone else's girlfriend." Willow frowned at his words, her tone indignant. "George, who is she?" I rolled my eyes, too tired to argue. "Why does it matter to you? Besides, for someone who questions other men so freely, your boyfriend sure is understanding." I glanced at Makoto, whose face twisted in frustration. I turned to leave, but Willow stepped in front of me, her eyes red, lips trembling. "You owe me an explanation," she demanded. I almost raised my hand to slap her, but before I could act, Makoto interjected, yelling, "What? You're going to hit a woman now? If you're a real man, hit me instead. Bullying women makes you what? A tough guy." It was the first time anyone had ever made such a request to me, so, without hesitation, I granted it. Before he could finish speaking, I punched him square in the right eye. Stumbling back, Makoto tried to say something else, but I followed up with a sharp slap across his face. He froze, crouched on the ground, cursing me for being dishonorable, but he didn't dare get up again. Even so, Willow still blocked the staircase, refusing to let me pass. I sighed, ready to push past her, but Anna stepped forward instead. Her gaze was icy as she stared Willow down, her presence intimidating. Unable to argue, Willow stepped aside, though her unwillingness was clear. Anna adjusted my scarf and said with a knowing smile, "Go on up. Don't get the scarf dirty." I nodded and hurried upstairs. That evening, Willow knocked on my door. Outside, she wore her usual smile and said cheerfully, "My parents aren't home tonight. Can I join you for dinner?" In the past, I would have been overjoyed to welcome her in, but now, looking at her face only filled me with disgust. "Willow, don't you think this is ridiculous? Don't tell me you're with Makoto but still haven't let go of me." Her smile faltered briefly, and pain flickered in her eyes. "George, can't we even be friends?" "No," I replied bluntly and slammed the door in her face. After a moment, I reopened it. Willow's eyes lit up, but before she could speak, I tossed a box at her feet. "Here's everything you've ever given me. Take it back, and as for what I gave you, keep it. I don't want it anymore." She stared at the box, stunned, then bent down to pick up the topmost item. Inside was the gray scarf she had painstakingly knitted. Its soft texture shimmered gently under the dim light. "What about this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You don't want this either." I made it stitch by stitch. I looked at her coldly. "I don't need it anymore. It's tainted." The Willow who once cared for me so deeply no longer existed. I didn't tell her that I'd noticed how she stayed up late every night to finish the scarf for me. She would never know how much I once wanted to cherish her forever, to grow old together. As I closed the door, I saw her clutching the scarf tightly, her face filled with pain and confusion. Chapter 14. Life seemed to return to its former rhythm, only now, there was no Willow, and Anna was slowly becoming a larger presence. Anna always found excuses to visit David and would conveniently bring an extra lunch, inviting me to try it. On weekends, she often asked me to join her at the library to study. Finally, during one of these library visits, Anna couldn't hold back anymore. "George," she asked, "why don't you respond to my feelings? Do you even realize how I feel about you?" Caught off guard, I nodded awkwardly, then shook my head. Her expression turned puzzled. "Isn't it obvious? I make special lunches for you and even invite you out on dates. I was speechless. What kind of dates always take place in a library? And as for her special lunches, who considers dishes like cucumber salad, cold tomatoes, boiled eggs with soy sauce, or, most absurdly, plain rice with 2 sausages a heartfelt gesture? I sighed and leaned closer, whispering in her ear, "How about we go to the beach next week? I hear there'll be fireworks at night." Anna's face turned crimson as she pressed her lips tightly together and nodded emphatically. Satisfied, I couldn't help but smile. After parting ways with Anna, I returned home just as heavy rain began to pour. Watching the downpour through my window, I found myself wondering, where was Bliss? Or, was she even still here? A wave of sadness crept into my heart, tinged with a faint bitterness. "George," a familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. Turning around, I saw Willow. Her face carried a mix of sorrow and joy. "George, I broke up with Makoto." I froze for a moment before replying flatly, "That has nothing to do with me. You didn't need to tell me." I turned to head upstairs, but she suddenly hugged me from behind. A faint scent of alcohol lingered in the air, making me frown. "Let go, Willow," I said, my voice filled with disdain. Her voice trembled as she cried, "George, I was wrong. I finally realize now that it's you I've loved all along. I can't stand living without you. Can you forgive me?" By the time she finished, her words were barely coherent through her sobs, but I felt nothing. I shoved her to the ground without hesitation. As she sat there in pain, I looked down at her from the stairs and said coldly, "Honestly, Willow, your behavior is pathetic and revolting." Thinking about her future with Makoto only deepened my loathing. "Maybe I should thank you for leaving me," I added. Without sparing her another glance, I turned and walked away. But through the heavy rain, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. Excited, I tried to get a closer look, but when I blinked, the figure was gone. Bitterly, I smiled to myself. Was I thinking about her too much lately? Chapter 15. Willow was attacked by Makoto's creditors. They intended to take revenge on her, and they didn't hold back. She was struck in the head and rushed into surgery. My mother told me the news while I was making plans with David for a summer trip. As I stared at the glowing red light above the operating room, I thought of the message Willow had sent me just hours earlier. "George, summer is almost here. Will you go to the beach with me one last time?" Since our last meeting, she had messaged me every day, but I never replied. In fact, I had blocked her. She didn't know that I already had someone else to go to the beach with. Outside the operating room, her parents sat on the bench, weeping uncontrollably. My parents tried to comfort them, though their own eyes were wet with tears. I stared blankly at the sterile white walls of the hospital, my emotions a tangled mess. At the end of the hallway, I suddenly saw Bliss in a white dress. I walked toward her, and she took my hand, smiling gently, a smile I had never seen before. "Dad, it's my birthday today. Can you make me a bowl of noodles?" Her request startled me. Seeing the anticipation in her eyes, I found myself agreeing. At a nearby diner, I borrowed the kitchen and quickly made Bliss a bowl of noodles. Steam rose from the dish, blurring her features, making her expression unreadable. But then she spoke. "I'm the one who told those people where to find Willow." She looked up, her tone calm yet piercing. "I'm the reason she's lying in that hospital bed, fighting for her life." I stared at her, overwhelmed with questions I didn't know how to voice. Hadn't she been helping Willow all this time? Didn't she hate me? Why would she do this? In the end, I felt too exhausted to ask. Bliss's actions and words had always been beyond my comprehension. Perhaps today had drained me too much. I slumped over the table and fell asleep, slipping into another dream about the future, a dream I hadn't had in a long time. This time, it was all about my daughter, Bliss. I saw her as a newborn, her grape-like eyes shining as she smiled at me. I saw her at 5 years old, crafting a clay cake and singing "Happy Birthday" to me after Willow forgot my birthday. I saw her at 10, proudly telling everyone at the parent-teacher meeting, "I have the best dad in the world." I saw her at 13, brandishing scissors at Willow and Makoto after learning the truth about their betrayal. Finally, I saw her at 15. She found Anna at the hospital and solemnly said, "If you ever treat my dad poorly, I'll haunt you even as a ghost." Anna, wearing her white coat, didn't laugh at the seemingly childish threat. Instead, she bent down and held out her pinky. "I understand. Let's make a promise," Anna said. Bliss hooked her pinky with Anna's, smiling brightly. After leaving the hospital, she sought out a secluded spot and took out an old-fashioned phone. "All right," she said, "if you can really take me back in time, then bring me to the moment before my mom confessed to my dad." The phone responded, "As you wish. But why not simply tell your father about the future? Why choose to push them apart by slandering him?" Bliss paused for a long time before smiling faintly. "You don't understand. My dad is the kindest, softest person in the world. If I didn't make him hate me first, he'd stop me. He might even relive the same pain just for my sake." At last, I understood Bliss's greatest secret. She loved me. She had always loved me. Tears streamed down my face as I reached out for the daughter in my dream, only to watch her fade away. Choking back sobs, I called after her, "Bliss, would you still want to be my daughter in the next life?" She turned to me, smiling innocently. Of course, Bliss may not be a kind girl, but to Dad, she's always been a good daughter. I shook my head, forcing a smile through my tears. "I'm sorry and thank you." When I woke, the seat across from me was empty. Tears still wet my face as I realized the journey of love and time had truly come to an end. Chapter 16. The doctor said that while Willow's life was saved, it was unlikely she would ever wake up. When she was rushed to the hospital, covered in blood, they said she was clutching the gray scarf she had knit herself. Hearing this, I simply stared at the sky in silence. In the distance, David waved at me, grinning. "George, let's go to the beach." Beside him, Anna looked at me with gentle eyes. I stood up and ran toward them. "Let's go." The following summer, I graduated alongside the rest of my senior class. As the season of endless sunshine faded, I joined them in stepping onto our respective college campuses. 4 years later, I graduated from the School of Law with honors and became a successful lawyer. Anna and I got married, with both of our families expressing their wholehearted approval. One of my greatest joys was teasing David by making him call me uncle. He would always try to hit me, yelling about how I had somehow managed to board Anna's pirate ship. 3 years into our marriage, Anna became pregnant. She insisted on going to work every day and refused to take leave. I found myself distracted at work, constantly worrying something might happen to her. But Anna reassured me not to fret and, with a knowing smile, banned me from even thinking about quitting my job for her sake. She promised to take care of herself and reminded me that we had a housekeeper to help out. She added, "Besides, if I'm not at the office, who's going to stop David from playing games during work hours and running the company into the ground?" When David overheard this, their bickering turned the house into chaos once again. 7 months into her pregnancy, my mother told me that Willow had woken up. Anna said, "You two spent so many years together. If you have time, you should visit her." I stayed silent for a moment before nodding. On a weekend, Anna and I went to the hospital. In the lobby, I unexpectedly ran into Makoto. I remembered that he had been forced to leave school due to his family's debt collectors causing constant trouble. He never took the college entrance exams and instead moved to a small town to work off the debt. Now, seeing Makoto in faded, worn-out clothes, his face unshaven and his expression weary, I felt a pang of recognition. But when he spotted me, his old resentment flared up immediately. "George," he spat, clenching his fists. Why are you so lucky? Why am I the one left in ruins?" I couldn't help but laugh. When he had the chance to work hard, he threw it all away in his obsession to win Willow over. Now that his life had fallen apart, he blamed others for their good fortune. Deciding he wasn't worth my attention, I took Anna's hand and walked away. Chapter 17. In Willow's hospital room, I saw her staring blankly out the window at the sunlight. Time had left its marks on her face, but the shadow in her eyes disappeared the moment she saw me. Her voice trembled as she called my name. "George." I had already let go of the past, so I nodded in acknowledgement. Her lips began to curve into a small smile until she noticed Anna behind me, and the curve of her pregnant belly. Willow's expression darkened as she gazed at me silently for a long time. Finally, she closed her eyes and whispered, "George, I wish you happiness." I smiled at her and said, "Thank you." 3 months later, Anna gave birth to a daughter. Her eyes were as bright as stars, and her tiny form nestled into Anna's arms softened Anna's entire expression. But when I noticed the small mole on her nose, my eyes filled with tears.